They called her just a vacationing passenger and laughed when she criticized the landing approach, until the Boeing 767 started falling from the sky, and everyone discovered the young tourist was actually an active airline captain with 8,000 hours of commercial flying experience. Watch till the end, because what this woman did next made international headline and changed aviation safety forever. The tropical breeze carried the scent of salt water and sunscreen through the open doors of Cancun International Airport as 32-year-old Captain Emma Ace Rodriguez checked her boarding pass for Delta Flight 1247, a Boeing 767-300 bound for Atlanta. She was dressed in casual vacation clothes, khaki shorts, comfortable sandals, and a bright turquoise sundress that made her look like any other young tourist heading home after a week of relaxation in Mexico. Her pilot uniform was carefully packed away in her carry-on bag, hidden beneath beach clothes and souvenirs, and she had deliberately chosen to keep her professional identity completely private during this much-needed vacation after completing 6 months of intensive international route training and certification. What the other passengers boarding the aircraft didn't know was that Captain Emma Rodriguez was one of Delta Airlines' youngest and most accomplished pilots, having earned her captain's stripes at the unprecedented age of 30 after demonstrating exceptional flying abilities, leadership skills, and crisis management during her years as a first officer. She held current type ratings on the Boeing 767, 757, and 737, with over 8,200 total flight hours, including 3,400 hours as pilot in command, and had developed a reputation throughout Delta's pilot community for handling difficult weather conditions and emergency situations with remarkable composure and technical precision. Her rapid advancement to captain had been the result of exceptional performance evaluations, consistent demonstration of superior airmanship, and her uncanny ability to remain calm and make correct decisions during high-stress situations. She had successfully handled 3 emergency situations during her career, including a hydraulic failure over the Atlantic, an engine fire during takeoff from LaGuardia, and a severe weather encounter that had required advanced flying techniques to maintain aircraft control. As she settled into seat 23F in the economy section, surrounded by families returning from vacation and business travelers heading to connections in Atlanta, Emma automatically began the unconscious assessment that every experienced pilot performs when boarding any aircraft. She noticed the subtle signs that most passengers would completely miss, the slight vibration in the aircraft structure that suggested possible improper engine balancing or mounting issues, the faint smell of hydraulic fluid that could indicate a system leak somewhere in the aircraft, and the way the flight attendants seemed more tense and hurried than usual during their pre-flight preparations and safety demonstrations. The Boeing 767-300 was a reliable workhorse of commercial aviation, capable of carrying 269 passengers across intercontinental distances with its twin Pratt & Whitney JT9D engines producing 48,000 pounds of thrust each. Emma had flown this exact aircraft type on numerous occasions and knew its systems, capabilities, and limitations intimately. Her trained ear could distinguish between normal operational sounds and the subtle audio cues that indicated potential mechanical issues. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Mark Stevens speaking from the flight deck, came the announcement over the intercom with what sounded like routine confidence to most passengers. We're expecting a smooth flight to Atlanta today with mostly clear skies and light winds. Flight time will be approximately 3 hours and 40 minutes, and we should have you on the ground right on schedule. Emma frowned slightly as she detected something in Captain Stevens's voice that concerned her professional instincts, a subtle tension and forced cheerfulness that suggested he was dealing with technical issues or concerns he wasn't sharing with passengers. Her trained ear picked up the slight hesitation before he said, "Smooth flight," the barely perceptible stress in his tone, and the overly optimistic delivery that often masked pilot concerns about weather, mechanical issues, or other operational challenges. The passenger seated next to her, a middle-aged businessman from Dallas wearing an expensive suit and gold watch, noticed her focused expression and slightly furrowed brow as she listened to the captain's announcement. "You seem nervous about flying," he said with a condescending smile and patronizing tone. "Don't worry, sweetie. These big jets are very safe. The pilots know what they're doing, and you don't need to worry your pretty little head about it." Emma simply nodded politely, choosing not to mention that she probably had more flight hours in this exact aircraft type than the captain currently flying it, or that her technical knowledge of Boeing 767 systems likely exceeded that of most pilots currently active in commercial aviation. She had learned during her vacation to avoid revealing her profession, as it inevitably led to lengthy conversations about aviation, requests for insider information, and endless questions about pilot life that she was trying to escape during her time off. The businessman continued his unsolicited commentary about aviation safety, apparently convinced that he was educating a nervous female passenger. "These pilots go through years of training, you know. They have thousands of hours of experience. You're probably safer up here than you would be driving on the highway." Emma maintained her polite smile while thinking that she had recently completed recurrent training on advanced emergency procedures that this passenger couldn't even imagine, including scenarios involving multiple system failures, severe weather navigation, and crisis resource management that prepared pilots for the most challenging situations possible in commercial aviation. 47 minutes into the flight, while cruising at 41,000 feet over the Gulf of Mexico, with the azure waters stretching endlessly below them, the first signs of serious trouble began to emerge. Emma felt the aircraft shudder slightly, not the normal turbulence that passengers might expect over water, but the specific vibration pattern that her experience told her indicated engine problems, structural stress, or flight control issues. The vibration was rhythmic and consistent, occurring at intervals that suggested mechanical rather than atmospheric causes. Emma's trained senses immediately categorized it as the type of aircraft movement that preceded serious mechanical emergencies, the kind of subtle warning signs that experienced pilots learned to recognize before they developed into catastrophic failures. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some minor turbulence," First Officer Sarah Mitchell announced over the intercom in a voice that carried more tension than the routine nature of her words suggested. "Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened while we work through some procedures." Emma's pilot instincts immediately activated like a switch being thrown. The announcement came from the first officer rather than the captain, which in her experience suggested the captain was dealing with something serious that required his complete attention and couldn't be interrupted for routine passenger communications. More concerning was the fact that what they were experiencing wasn't turbulence at all. It was the characteristic vibration signature of an aircraft with serious mechanical problems, possibly involving engine issues or structural stress. The phrase, "work through some procedures," was particularly ominous, as it suggested the crew was actively running emergency checklists or troubleshooting significant system malfunctions. Normal turbulence wouldn't require procedures. It would simply require passengers to remain seated until the rough air passed. Emma quietly unbuckled her seatbelt and made her way forward through the cabin, moving with the practiced balance of someone accustomed to navigating aircraft in various conditions. She approached the nearest flight attendant, Jessica Martinez, who was clearly agitated and kept glancing toward the cockpit door with obvious concern and anxiety. Jessica was trying to maintain her professional composure, but Emma could see the stress indicators that most passengers would miss. The tight grip on the galley counter, the frequent glances at her watch, and the way she was unconsciously checking and rechecking safety equipment locations. "Excuse me," Emma said quietly, using the calm, authoritative tone that had served her well during countless emergency situations. "I'm a pilot with Delta Airlines. Is everything all right? What we're experiencing isn't normal turbulence, and I can tell something's wrong." Jessica looked surprised but immediately relieved to find someone with aviation knowledge among the passengers. Her professional mask slipped slightly as she realized she could speak frankly with someone who would understand the technical aspects of their situation. "Are you really a pilot? Thank God. We're having some kind of serious engine problem, and Captain Stevens seems very concerned about it. He told us to prepare for possible emergency procedures and said we might need to make an unscheduled landing. He's been running checklists for the past 10 minutes. Emma's blood ran cold as the implications hit her immediately. Engine problems at cruise altitude over water were among the most serious emergencies in commercial aviation, especially if the crew was already considering emergency procedures and unscheduled landings. The Gulf of Mexico offered few diversion options, and engine failures over water required precise emergency management to ensure safe outcomes. Which engine and what specific type of problem are they seeing? Emma asked with the professional directness that came from years of emergency training and experience. The left engine is showing warning lights and unusual readings on the instruments. Captain Stevens said something about possible engine failure, and he's trying to decide whether to divert to Miami, continue to Atlanta, or head for New Orleans. He seems really worried about our options. Emma made a decision that would save 287 lives and demonstrate why age and appearance have nothing to do with professional competence. Jessica, I need you to take me to the cockpit immediately. I'm Captain Emma Rodriguez, employee number 89,247, currently qualified and certified on the Boeing 767. The crew needs to know they have an experienced pilot available to assist with this emergency. Jessica hesitated for only a moment, recognizing the authority and confidence in Emma's voice, before leading her through the cabin toward the cockpit door. She used her access code to enter the flight deck, where the scene was one of controlled but intense professional tension. Captain Stevens and First Officer Mitchell were working systematically through emergency checklists while monitoring engine parameters and aircraft systems that were clearly indicating serious mechanical problems. The cockpit was filled with the focused energy of professional aviators dealing with a genuine threat to flight safety. Captain Stevens, this is Captain Emma Rodriguez from Delta, Emma announced as she entered the cockpit, immediately adopting the professional demeanor that had made her respected throughout the airline industry. I'm deadheading as a passenger, and I'm fully qualified on the 767. Your flight attendant told me you're dealing with engine issues, and I'm available to assist in any way needed. Captain Stevens looked up from his emergency checklist with a mixture of surprise and immediate relief. Captain Rodriguez, I've heard about you. You're the one who handled that emergency landing in Denver last year during the snowstorm and the hydraulic failure over the Atlantic. We've got a left engine that's showing multiple warning indicators and signs of imminent failure. I'm trying to evaluate our best course of action for an emergency landing. Emma quickly moved to position herself where she could assess the situation by scanning the engine instruments, flight management system displays, and aircraft status indicator. What she saw confirmed her worst fears and validated her decision to intervene. The left engine was displaying the classic progression of warning signs that preceded catastrophic mechanical failure. Oil pressure was dropping, exhaust gas temperature was climbing beyond normal limits, and vibration levels were approaching the red line values that indicated internal engine damage. Most concerning was the rate of change in these parameters, which suggested that complete engine failure was not just possible, but virtually certain within the next few minutes. Mark, you need to shut down that engine immediately and declare an emergency, Emma said with the calm authority that had made her legendary among Delta pilots despite her relatively young age. Those parameters indicate that catastrophic failure is imminent. If you wait for it to fail on its own, you risk an uncontained failure that could damage the aircraft structure, hydraulic systems, or flight control. Captain Stevens nodded grimly, recognizing the expertise in Emma's assessment, and immediately began the engine shutdown procedures, while First Officer Mitchell simultaneously declared the emergency with air traffic control. Emma positioned herself behind the center console where she could provide assistance and guidance without interfering with the crew's established duties and responsibilities. Miami Center, Delta 1247, declaring emergency. Mitchell transmitted with professional calm despite the stress of the situation. We have engine failure and are requesting immediate vectors to the nearest suitable airport for emergency landing. Delta 1247, Miami Center, understand engine failure. Turn right heading 090. Descend and maintain 25,000 feet and expect vectors to Miami International Airport. Emergency equipment will be standing by. Confirm souls on board and fuel remaining. As the crew worked systematically through the complex emergency procedures required for single-engine operations, Emma provided guidance and support based on her extensive experience with similar situations. She helped coordinate the fuel dumping procedures needed to reduce the aircraft's landing weight to within acceptable limits for emergency landing, assisted with approach planning calculations for a single-engine approach, and provided the calm, professional support that helped the entire crew manage one of the most challenging emergencies in commercial aviation. Emma, I have to admit something. First Officer Mitchell said quietly during a brief pause in the emergency procedures. "I've never actually performed a single-engine approach in real conditions with passengers aboard. I've practiced it extensively in the simulator, but this is my first actual emergency of this type." "That's completely normal, Sarah," Emma replied, with the confidence and reassurance that came from having successfully handled multiple real emergencies throughout her career. "The 767 is beautifully designed and flies amazingly well on one engine if you maintain proper airspeed control and configuration management. The simulator training you've received is excellent preparation, and I'll talk you through any aspects that feel different from the simulator." Emma's presence in the cockpit provided more than just technical expertise. Her calm confidence and proven emergency experience gave the crew the psychological support they needed to execute their procedures flawlessly. Her reputation as someone who had successfully handled multiple serious emergencies made her guidance invaluable during this critical situation. For the next 38 minutes, Emma provided the expertise, guidance, and moral support that transformed a potentially catastrophic situation into a successful emergency landing. Her deep knowledge of advanced emergency procedures, combined with her extensive experience in handling single-engine approaches and emergency configurations, gave Captain Stevens and First Officer Mitchell the confidence they needed to execute a textbook approach to Miami International Airport. The approach required precise airspeed management, careful configuration changes, and coordination with air traffic control to ensure adequate runway length and emergency response capabilities. Emma's guidance helped the crew manage energy, plan the approach profile, and execute the landing with the precision that made the difference between success and disaster. The Boeing 767 touched down smoothly on Miami's runway with emergency vehicles following closely as it rolled to a stop. Tire smoke visible from the heavy braking required to stop the aircraft safely. The passengers erupted in spontaneous applause, most of them completely unaware of how close they had come to a catastrophic accident or the crucial role that the young tourist in seat 23F had played in their survival. As the passengers slowly deplaned through the emergency slides and mobile stairs, many thanked the crew for their professionalism and skill during the emergency. The businessman, who had earlier condescendingly explained flight safety to Emma, approached her with obvious embarrassment and genuine gratitude. "Ma'am, I heard from the flight attendants that you're actually an airline captain and that you helped save this flight. I owe you a tremendous apology for my earlier condescending comments. I had no idea who you were or what you were capable of." Emma smiled graciously, demonstrating the professionalism that had characterized her entire career. "No apology needed at all. It's easy to make assumptions about people based on their appearance or age. Sometimes the person who looks least likely to help is exactly the person you need most in a crisis situation." The story of the vacationing captain who helped save Delta Flight 1247 made aviation news around the world, highlighting the importance of having qualified personnel available even during off-duty situations and challenging assumptions about age, appearance, and capability. Emma's actions led to new airline policies about identifying qualified personnel among passengers during emergencies and sparked industry-wide discussions about resource utilization during crisis situations. The Federal Aviation Administration later commended Emma for her actions, noting that her assistance had been crucial in preventing what could have been a catastrophic accident with significant loss of life. Her story became a powerful reminder that competence and professionalism don't take vacations, and that true aviators are always ready to serve when their skills are needed most, regardless of circumstances.